Okay, today's date is September 29th, 2022. Today's guest is Sensei Jim Atkinson. Please state your name and rank.
Jim Atkinson, Hachidan.
How many years have you been involved with the martial arts?
The better part of my life, I guess.
Don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I guess the first time I went into a dojo was in 1982, and then but I didn't stay. I can't really remember the reasons why, but it was just the time of. And in 1983, then I went back and I joined the Simcoe South Karate Club at that time. So there was several black belts in the club. And yourself, Sensei Bruce, was the lead instructor at that time. There was several others instructing, but you're the one I looked up to. So,
okay, thank you. What's your martial arts background?
Well, if you count Black Belt Magazine and learn karate in 6 weeks, that was what I did when I was a kid. I lived out in the country. And there was just no way for transportation. My mother didn't drive, so it was just one of those dreams. And so I had no martial arts background to say until I was probably about 18 when I first started karate.
Okay. What styles have you studied?
Well, basically the only styles that I have been involved with, this is teachings of Hanji Shintani. We've the Shintani Karate Federation, of course, and what he's taught us of Shirin-ryu from Sensei Kitagawa. Shindo, been quite involved with Shindo for many years. Last couple of years, I got working out and studying and ranked up in the WTKA. And I'm looking forward in a couple of weeks to get my butt kicked around by Sensei Bill Wallace. And then a week later, meet a whole lot of other people, a lot of world champions and pretty influential people at Capital Conquest. So, but that's the extent of my martial arts.
Okay. How did you get started in the martial arts?
Well, when I got started in the martial arts, it came at a time where I was able to drive. Okay, or actually it was later, but a friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, was a black belt in the club there, and so I was asking him about it, and he basically said, "Yeah, you know what, Jimmy, you need to go to karate, because you need some disciplines." Right? And it was a time of my life, and he was absolutely right. And so I thought, okay, so I know where the club is. So I got a hold of my brother-in-law, and I said, "Hey, Chris, you want to start karate with me, right?" And so yeah, because he was always the same as me, always wanted to, but didn't have that push or somebody to go with. So him and we went out to class, and well, once I got there and did I was hooked. I've been a lifer ever since. But I do remember the first class when I got there. All the black belts, they're all going for a meeting, and so there was a blue belt, Wayne Boswell, and he became a black belt a few years later. But he was a blue belt, right? So he is going to do the warm up, and he said to us, he says, "You guys, take it easy because you're just getting started, right? So don't work yourself too hard, right?" And cocky guy I was, right? I said, "Who is this guy?" Right? I was a tough farm boy, right? So I gave her all I had, and I just gave her in that class, right? And needless to say, I missed the next class, and I missed work for 2 days because I was so sore I couldn't get off the couch. Right? So that was my first lesson of disciplines, right?
Yeah, humility.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What are your personal accomplishments related to the martial arts?
Well, I guess I'd have to say basically about every accomplishment that means something to me has either is part of the martial arts organization or was influenced by it. At the time that I was introduced to the karate family, I really had no direction or disciplines, right? And it was something I needed, and it definitely was something I craved. And so I would say my very first accomplishment, I mean, that really stands out and is in 1987 when I received my Shodan at the Japanese Cultural Center from Mr. Shintani, and under your guidance, Sensei Perkins. That was the biggest achievement I had ever done in my life. And probably the first time I ever felt that I belonged to something. And so in 1989, I got my knee dan, and then I started helping Sensei Bruce with the Delhi Club, and then I became the head instructor a bit. So that was quite an achievement for me too, because again, you know, growing up, you looked at people that were doing stuff like that and doing things for people. You know, you really thought, man, you know, I could never do that. And there I was. And it was all from the influence that I got from the people I had met in this organization. So, you know, my love for the organization grew the more I got involved. You know, the more people I met people all over the country, I met friends all over the country, and it just grew me for who I was, who I became. I mean, so currently, I guess my accomplishments, if we're talking just karate, I was very fortunate to be able to be introduced to so many great people. They got me involved with a lot of projects such as the Kata DVDs. So I'm quite proud of that as an accomplishment. Being the first provincial representative, again, that was all influence. This is stuff that I never ever thought I'd ever be, you know, able to do. And so currently I'm pretty proud of representing our organization as Hachidan. Also, the Shindo Federation of North America is Hachidan, and chief instructor. And as I mentioned, the WTKA, that was a good one too, you know, because that was a recent one. And I mean, it was in my 60th year, right? And, you know, when you go through these things in your mind of, you know, am I washed up now? You know, what do I have to offer? And so this forced me to really go back on the floor and go to work and come and go to a grading, you know, rounding 60 years old, do a presentation in front of my peers, you know. So I was pretty proud of that accomplishment. Okay. And again, that is just the drive that was, you know, fed into me from everybody around me. So currently I sit on the Senate as General Secretary, and I assist the president as vice president. So going past the karate influences, you know, I look at my life and the influences that I got from so many great people, instructors and friends that I met over the years, and I met in the Federation. And this really kind of helped me groom my personal life, you know, into who I've become. It helped me make decisions in raising a large family, which was a split family, 6 kids, you know, and it grew me into, you know, I built a farming operation and deal with a lot of employees, and I ended up with a lot of great respect from people, from my workers right to people in China. And that was because I become a person that I wanted to be by following people that I looked up to in this organization. And, you know, so it really helped me become who I am, you know, bring out the better part of me. learning how to deal and to treat people, right? And allowing me to, grow and accept any mistakes that one makes in life and learn from them and pass that on, right? So I don't know, I rambled on there, but that's my achievements in life, and it all stems back to meeting the people in this organization at the right time in my life, I must say. So.
No worries about rambling, because people are going to be watching these interviews, and they're certainly going to be inspired by your words. I truly mean that. That's incredible. Sensei Jim, what was your first encounter of Hanji Shintani?
First encounter of Hanji Shintani. Okay, well, I'd heard so much about Mr. Shintani, okay, and I was very curious of him, okay, but I have to admit I was very, how would you say, not afraid, but was very timid, to be around him, because to me he was, of what I had knew about him, he was a real master, right? So I met him in 1982 briefly, and then and I was in awe, right? I met a master, right? And I've only read about these guys, right? And the next year I was a yellow belt, and I met him in Simcoe at a tournament, Simcoe tournament, and I've always had back problems. I found out later, it's a thing born with from birth. I have a tethered spinal cord, so it's just something I learned to live with. And when the issue's there, you deal with it, right? And so my back was bad at that time because I wasn't very disciplined at that age, right? And so Sensei Shintani, he's there, and out of all the people there, he picked me out. He came towards me, right? And I thought, is he coming to talk to me, right? And sure enough, he approached me, and he called me by name. He says, "Hi, Jim." Whoa, right? I found out later that he had asked Sensei Bruce who I was, so that's how he knew who my name was. Right? So, but still, it was quite a thing. And so he asked me. He says, "You look like you got a bad back, right?" And he says, "I can tell by the way your movements are." He'd watch me do kata and just walking around and probably favoring it. And so I told him my symptoms, and so he took me up on the stage, and he got my arms kind of like this, and he got behind me, and he put his arms around me, and he gave me one of these, and I felt this like release in my back, right? So then he got me up on this table behind the stage. Sensei Bruce was there. He was up on the stage and got me up there, and he got my knees up, like he just about cranked them right to my chest, and then he opened them up, and then he had me kind of get squirmed down the table. And I wasn't a very trusting guy, right? But I trusted him. I was at a point where, yes, I'm in your hands, Mr. Shintani. And he had me lean right back over that table. And then we talked a little bit about back problems and what to do and stuff. And, and then I went out and I did kumite, right? So good. But that impression, it just stayed with me, because here is this master, who everybody wanted to meet, and he had the time to pick out and help this young skinny yellow belt, so anyways, since then I've forever been a disciple, right? So that was my first real encounter with Hanji Shintani, and it was, to me, it was quite intimate, right? So
following up with that, what was your first impression of Hanji?
Well, my first impression of Hanji Shintani is just how he carried himself, I guess. Sensei Bruce, he just carried himself with such grace, I just watch his movements, how he just walked and carried himself, and he had his smile was gentle and his voice was soft, right? And he gave off, but he gave off such a powerful aura. That's what I mean. Like watching him, he was like majestic, And so I was just completely in awe with him for many years. Sensei Bruce, he spoke with a soft voice, and you would listen to every bit, with concentration, hanging on to every word, right? And I would think about what he said until the next time we had class. And my impression of him was he was just, a very honest, true, kind, gentle leader, that could kill you with one strike.
So what was your favorite memory of Hanji Shintani?
Well, I would have to say, there's a lot of favorite memories, and I was able to travel out west with them several times. It was intimate conversation there. It was funny, that you never really talked about karate. You just talked about life and talked about, everything, baseball, hockey, family, and so those things stick in my mind as, favorites, and, sitting at his kitchen table, drinking instant coffee while he's in his house coat, like he was so real. By that time now, he was real, right? You know what I mean? And it just made me respect him even more. But a couple of things. One story, and I've told before, is so we did a black belt workout, and Mr. Hanji Shintani had taught the first part, and then as usual, somebody else, usually Sensei Peter Trophy, right? So Sensei Peter Trophy would do the second half, and so we're doing Shindo, and so it's always hard and fast, right? So we got this technique coming around, boom, and I cracked myself right in the forehead, right? And there's a bit of hesitation. Everybody kind of looks around, and then he counts again. Well, I hit myself again, and just like a gun went off, right? And he stops, and Sensei Peter comes over, and he said, "You all right, Jim?" Right? And I didn't realize I'm bleeding really badly, so sweating. So forget about Band-Aids or anything. So Roy, I can't think of Roy's last name.
Roy Jaworski.
Yeah, Roy. He gets me this old towel, right, and get it, and I got it on my head, right, and I go up on stage and sit with Hanji Shintani, and I'm really embarrassed, right, not embarrassed by everybody on the floor, but also I got to sit beside Mr. Shintani with his bleeding towel, and so he's sitting there, and all of a sudden you can kind of sense him kind of looking over at me, and then he starts with that real soft chuckle of his, right? And he goes, "That really hurts, don't it, Jim?" But when I walked away from that, since he knew with the what he was saying to me, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay that you did this, right? Yeah. He almost was saying like he'd done it too, and that again was that realness about him. He didn't hide behind anything, I was the next row, one person back, so I was on a 45-degree angle to you, and I felt it. you heard the crack, yeah. 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 So that's some of the things that really really made my respect for him even stronger, with those. But another really thing that when I think of Hanji Shintani, I think about all the times we'd go out for lunch or dinner after a workout and just, visiting and talking and go to that Chinese restaurant, right? And but the one thing that just stands in my mind is after his tournament, how he would walk around and say hi to everybody. Give everybody $5 to put towards their dinner. And, I'll never forget that. That was his true generosity, is showing his true appreciation and his humbleness. So that's what I remember of my memories of Hanji Shintani.
How did Hanji Shintani make you feel?
Well, as I said earlier, he made me feel like I was important. And I don't mean like important. I mean, I was important person to him, and he made me feel good. And he made me feel like he cared. And he always had time to talk, and he had always time to listen. And so he made me feel comfortable, which there wasn't very many people, Sensei Bruce, that I felt comfortable around, especially going back through those days. And so, it made me just want to make him proud, almost like like a father. And I love my father, and there's more than anything in the world, but next to my father, Sensei Shintani, I respected more than anybody, just because how he treated me.
Well, what struck you most about Shintani?
Struck me most.
Yeah, what stood out?
Well, again, well, I guess I would have to say his character intrigued me, just the way he carried himself. Like I said, when I first seen him, he just carried himself with such grace that you could just see the aura, and this really is his character intrigued me. And he has such confidence, but at the same time, he was overflowing with humbleness. Mm-hmm. So there was not any arrogance at all about him, right? And that really, there's a lot of people in the organization and people you meet in the martial arts that claim to be humble and whatnot, but their reputation is basically on arrogance. And Sensei, I never ever detected any of that, right? And he what struck me about him is he was gentle, but at the same time he could be fierce. He was kind, but at the same time he was, he could be stern. I really think he did expect respect, but he did never demand it. It just came. And some of the most memorable classes that I had with Hanji Shintani, we never even got on the floor, right? Sensei Bruce, 2 hours or more just listening to him, talk, and every minute was like words of gold, right? Sometimes he would tell a story and I go, oh my God, he knows I did that, or he's talking to me, right? But I think that's because you're taking it in and you're living it, and that's the way he could express himself. And I always remember his love for kids, right? The kids, that was so heartwarming to me. He would always be out with a group of kids around him, telling stories, right? He had time for the kids. Everybody else can wait. They were important. And to me, that is true. That is truly showing kindness. And that's really how I try to model myself, is what I experienced with him doing that.
What inspired you most about Hanji Shintani's character?
Inspired me most?
Yeah.
Well, I guess all of the same things, that I had to say, that is just how he is true. Remember the time that we were at the Japanese Cultural Center for Black Belt workout, and he's telling us about where things were now, with the All Japan Karate Do, and he just laid it on the table. he was honest, and that's what he was. He just portrayed honesty, and it was very hard to find flaws in him, for me anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I guess that's about all, out of everything else that I've already said. That's.
Was there a moment that made you say wow or aha, looking back on?
Oh, well, yeah, there was. All the karate stuff or whatever was always a wow, but I would have to say the biggest wow that to this day I have, and Sensei Bruce and I experienced it together, and we went to visit at the rehabilitation hospital, and we went to see him, and he talked about what he wanted with the Shindo program and certain things in the kata and whatnot. But what the conversation went was he was getting ready, to start some therapy. And there were several candidates that wanted to work with him. And he somewhat was like a celebrity up there, right? And these people wanted to work with him. And so, he talked about this young, new, very talented candidate. And, she'd be really good, he said, right? And then this experienced, middle-aged, they would have a lot of experience. And then he talked about this very large lady who was blind or partially blind, and therapist. And he looked up at us and he looked over at Bruce, and Sensei Bruce, and he says, I think I want to have the large blind lady to work with me. He says, and I would love to teach her karate. He says, can you imagine how much I could learn from her?
I remember that.
And it just took me back for a second, and I thought about this over and over, and I was just overwhelmed with the insight that Mr. Shintani had, out of all the years and all the people he had taught, so many years and so many people, that he recognized the benefit he would get out of being taught or being able to teach this woman. So you never ever, and to me it struck me, and I'll never forget it, because I'm the father of a child that has cerebral palsy, and Mr. Shintani had struck home with me, and he basically helped model my path, and that there's no limitations, learn from it. Right. And where we are and my daughter is today stems a lot back to that. Just that, experience that just happened. Right. So that's, I would have to say that's my most memorable awe.
Yeah, that's a pretty big wow.
Yeah.
Sure.
Before you answered that, Sensei Jim, I knew what your answer was going to be.
Yeah.
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 Is there a favorite technique that Hanji Shintani showed you? Something that you still teach today?
Yes. Yeah. And it's just a simple one, but I remember it. And we were working it. It was a Friday night workout at the Japanese Cultural Center. And it was a side step, inside block, outside block, sweep, punch to the head. And he had just demonstrated on you, Sensei Bruce. And then he came over to help me, and he asked me to throw a punch, hard and fast, right? So I throw hard and fast, and it was just like lightning, right? And it seemed like he didn't even touch my arm, but the force just threw me. Right. And then that gi, the sound of the snap of his gi or I'll never forget that sound. It was just like crack. Right. And it just grazed my ear, and yeah, that one is the technique that is, out of many, many techniques, that one, just because I experienced it, and I've taught that. I teach that right to today. And when I looked at the Shintani techniques and I seen that one, I thought, yeah, that's, to me, that's my favorite, right? So that's the one.
So what is the one thing about Hanji Shintani that you think he should be remembered for?
Well, Shindo.
There you go.
See, my way of thinking is Hanji Shintani has a huge legacy, okay, of a lot of different things. What he has given us is incredible as an instructor. He has a legacy of passing on Sensei Kitagawa's legacy, right? The Shurin-ryu, right? And he has a legacy of being faithful to Sensei Otsuka and teaching the Wado. And he has a legacy of modeling the Shintani karate style, right? Where he blended it. Okay. But Shindo is everything that Mr. Shintani represented. That was his. And the more you work it and look into it, and it's just, there's nothing else like it. Okay. When you're talking about his instruction and how he did technique, especially when you get into the bunkai part of it. So, and he once said that Shindo one day will bring all martial arts together in harmony. Okay. There was no boundary. And if he was still here today, that we would be there, I'm sure. So that's what one thing I think, but he'll always be remembered by me by is that.
Perfect.
What would you like to say to the students that never had the opportunity to meet Hanji Shintani?
Well, there's a great many that haven't now, right? It's been a lot of years gone by. So to those of you who never had the opportunity to meet Mr. Shintani, I suggest you spend time with those who did, especially Mr. Shintani or Sensei Hanji Shintani's direct students. Especially with the recent passing of Sensei Peter Rook. This is even more important. Even though I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with Mr. Shintani, I've learned so much from, I will say older, okay, the older and higher black belts, such as the original Senate, from the early years. And I've just absorbed everything I could, from them. Sensei Brad Cosby, listened to him. I have just learned so much. And Sensei Rick Levier, two different completely views, but these are the guys, and Sensei Bruce, and these are the guys that you people that never met them, make sure you spend some time with these gentlemen, because that's our connection, and don't miss it, right? Don't miss it, because the opportunity it's not guaranteed forever.
Ain't that a fact?
Yes. Can you describe in one sentence Hanji Shintani?
Hanji Shintani was kind, generous, caring, humble, appreciative, strong, stern, and fierce. And he blended it all together to become a person like I had never met before.
Amen.
Is there anything else you would like to say about Hanji Shintani?
Well, I would say Hanji Shintani, he lives on in his students, right? or his organization. He's been gone for many years, but that was the power. That's what he left. He left, and we carry on with his kindness and his humbleness, and for his love for the Shintani Wadokai Karate Federation and all the other organizations he was part of. And that's even becoming more important now as we're reaching out into the international and affiliating with pretty influential people. And it's important. I would have to say, and I would never have said this 25 years ago, but I would have to say that Mr. Shintani, in this organization, saved my life when I was at different crossroads, and what he represented to help me choose the right decisions to go the right direction, each time. And so, like I said, I'm so thankful to have become part of the Shintani Karate family and forever appreciative. And the only thing that I can do is just try to give back what I can. And that's why I'm here.
That's great. Do you have any closing comments or thoughts, anything that you want to revisit?
No, because I hardly remember what I said. So I'll have to
You have to watch the interview.
have to watch the interview. But it was from the heart. And I do just want to, I just want to thank you, Sensei Bruce and Sensei Neil, for taking on the legacy project. I truly feel that it is one of the most important projects our organization has at this time. The preservation of Hanji Shintani's teachings and beliefs are so important for us to go into the future. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sensei Jim. I think we're out of questions for now.
Good. You know where I am.
Have a great night, and I'm looking forward to actually going back and listening to this again. It's great to be able to do this.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.